Right, bear with me a moment. There we go. Right. Okay, you have the control, Ned, all yours.
Great, thank you. And thank you everybody for joining us this afternoon, and congratulations for navigating. Apologies, echo Peter's apologies. I don't quite know what's happened there because it's normally terribly slick and smooth. And for some reason the system is playing up a little bit today, but anyway, the joys of webinars. My name is Ned Harrison. I work with Peter Frost at Suffolk County Council. I'm going to talk a little bit later on about the support that we provide to businesses through Business Energy Efficiency Anglia. I also work at Suffolk County Council on the climate emergency goals and our net zero target. Net zero is an ambitious, challenging target, I think it's fair to say, but it's something that increasingly we're seeing people asking about from the business sector as well. Today, particularly, we're looking at how there's support and funding available for that. And I would really encourage you to look for that, because particularly at the moment, there is likely to be support available for businesses looking to be ambitious about moving to net zero. So take advantage of it while it's there. We have the last iteration of EU funding going around at the moment, and then there will be more funding coming through from central government. And I think, as we've seen in the past, often the funding is there for the early adopters. We saw this with solar panels, that people who put them in early got a lot of funding, and then later on that tended to decline. So I'm very pleased that today we've got a couple of excellent speakers, I think, talking about some of the funding that is available, encouraging people to take advantage of that, and some of the ways you can support your own goals to be more sustainable. So I think we will hear from them. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the other provision afterwards, and then hopefully we have a little bit of time for questions if anyone has any specific projects in mind, or any queries about how best to access funding. But without further ado, I am going to hand over, I think, to Saffron Myhill to talk about low carbon innovation funding.
Hi Ned, thank you. I'll just start my video here so people can see me. Hello. Hi everyone. I'm going to thank you, Peter, and everybody for inviting me today to this. I'm Saffron Myhill. I'm part of a small team at the University of East Anglia. We work with businesses across a number of different programs and projects. The businesses we work with are bringing new products, new technologies to market. So we help them to do that. Those new products and technologies that we help to support are ones that will reduce greenhouse gas emissions. That's what we're here to do. I'm going to share my screen. Fingers crossed that's all going to go. Oh, the host needs to enable me to share my screen. So whoever's got those controls, if you could let me do that, that would be great. Hang on. Don't seem to be able to share my screen. Oh, I am the host now. Great, thank you. Hang on, let's get the right one. It should be that one. Great. Now, hopefully you're seeing a big slide that says investing in your business rather than a very detailed spreadsheet that's on my other screen.
Yeah, we have the slides.
Great, thanks. Thanks for confirming that. So one of the ways that we work with businesses to support them to reduce greenhouse gas emissions is through something called the Low Carbon Innovation Fund. And I'm going to tell you all about that. We are open for applications at the moment. So I just want to walk you through what that is, what it means for businesses, and what the details of that are. So just going to my second slide. So we are here to help with product development and bringing products to market. And those products that we're interested in are going to have some kind of impact on greenhouse gas emissions. We've been doing this since 2010. We've been investing into businesses, and we've now partnered with Norfolk County Council, and we also partner with a number of the LEPs across the whole of the east of England to bring this fund to bear on those areas. Now, there's a few key points to understand about Low Carbon Innovation Fund. The first thing is that it's a venture capital fund. So we make equity investments into businesses. We take a look at those businesses to work out whether the products, the technologies, the inventions, the new services that they want to bring to market will be in some way measurably carbon saving. If they are, then we're interested in supporting them at an early stage to bring those products to market. We make equity investments into those businesses. So it's not a grant, it's an equity investment. And the second thing to bear in mind is that we are a co-investment fund, which means that as we're using public sector money, this is European money that we're using to make investments, that does need to be matched with private sector money, and that's often from angel investors or other types of institutional investors and other funds. We can talk you through on a case-by-case basis what that might mean for your particular business if this is of interest to you. And just as to say that last year we invested £1.3 million into a number of different businesses, and that leveraged in an additional 7 million of private sector money. So that's why we want to use this public money to stimulate private sector money to bring more impact onto those businesses that are doing environmentally beneficial things. Just to say that I'll be here for, if you've got any questions, I'll be here to answer any questions that you might have. So what have we done so far? Well, we're actually on the second cycle of this fund. The first cycle we started off in 2010, and that first cycle invested 20.5 million into about 45 companies. And some of those companies we made multiple investments into during the period of the fund. That 20.5 million leveraged in an additional 50 million from the private sector. So we're very good at encouraging private sector investors to come into the companies that we support. That created 270 new jobs. Our funders are always happy to hear about that. And we were involved in about 20% of the investment deals across the east of England during that period of time. It brought about 100 new products to market, and it saved at least, and we know that the figure is higher than this, but this is a conservative estimate because it can only be an estimate. It saved over 250,000 tonnes of CO2 by bringing those products to market. And we're currently, as I said, in our second round of the fund, and we currently have 11 million to invest by the end of 2023. So we've got 2 years, this year and next year, to invest just under £11 million. So a bit more about what we're doing. Our fund helps save carbon. That's why it's here. That's why we've been given these public funds to make investments, to stimulate those companies to be more successful, to get those products to market as quickly as possible. That's the whole reason that we're here. And here's a few of the logos of some of the companies that we've invested into. One of the other benefits, I'll just move forward, one of the other benefits of us being involved, usually with quite early stage new technologies, is that it brings sort of approval. It's it can be very helpful in bringing a level of professionalism and a level of approval to that company in the eyes of other potential investors. And many of our companies that we've worked with have said that the involvement of Low Carbon Innovation Fund has been really helpful to them in their first fundraisings and also then in subsequent ones. So I'm just conscious of time here, so I am racing through a little bit just to give you the headlines of what you would need to know about the fund if you're thinking of applying. So who can apply for investment from the fund? Well, you should be looking to grow and develop your new product or technology with a fairly strong business plan. We can work with you on that. You need to be prepared to sell equity. So we buy shares in companies, and that's how we operate. We don't give a grant, we buy shares in the company. And so we're with the company for the long term as an ally. You must be an SME, which, you know, great majority of you probably will be, an SME operating in England. So that's an easy one. So the criteria that we have to make sure you're eligible is that you are producing technologies or products that are going to have a measurable greenhouse gas impact. And usually that's at the point of use. So you might be developing a little bit of technology that goes inside something else. The savings might be incremental. They might be very tiny savings individually, but globally, given, you know, good units of sale, good numbers of sales, they will have a measurable and substantial impact on greenhouse gas emissions. You need to have a business plan, of course. You need to have a strong and capable team that's appropriate for the scale, the stage of business that you're at. And you need to have the ability to raise co-investment from private sector investors. We can also advise on that and give you some assistance with that too. So just a few key things to be aware of. It's all on the slide. I won't go through them in detail. A couple of other things to be aware of, other than what I've mentioned already, is that we do provide a non-exec director onto the boards of all the companies that we invest into. And we are what's called patient capital, which means that if we make an investment, we don't expect an exit within a year or 2 years, which some other funds might expect. We understand that technology development takes a long time and often takes longer than anyone imagines, but we are patient with that and we want to support that company throughout its journey. Just moving on, some criteria that you need to be aware of. Yes, you need to be an SME. You need to be based within the East of England. I think I've mentioned all the other points already. Sensible valuations, but we can talk about that. That's on a case-by-case basis. And we are, just to be aware, we are actively seeking applications for investments between £25,000 and £50,000. That's a very small scale for venture capital, but we feel that that's a very important place to be making initial investments into companies that may not have raised equity investment before. We are happy to come in at that very early stage and to support the company at that point, and we are actively seeking applications at that scale at the moment. We'll go up to £1 million of investment, but the smallest is 25,000. So that's worth bearing in mind. And here's some contact details if you'd like to ask any questions. I'll be here for the Q&A on this session. So thank you very much. Hopefully I haven't gone too far over time, Ned.
No, that was pretty much spot on, and I appreciate the effort to rattle through quite a lot of details. So thank you very much, Saffron, and a really useful invite. And I've assumed it's okay that we're going to share all the presentations with everyone afterwards, so people will have those details to look at. We will have questions at the end. Feel free to put anything in the chat, but otherwise I'm just going to pass over to Chris Mussett to talk about Eastern New Energy, give another taster of some of the types of support available. Over to you, Chris.
Hi, thanks, Ned. Hopefully I should be able to share my screen. I think I might need to be enabled to share my screen by the current host, if possible, please. Yes, so my name is Chris Mussett and I'm a project officer here at Suffolk County Council, and I work on the Eastern New Energy project. Hopefully I should be able to share my screen right now. Hopefully you can see that. If I get a nod from Ned, perfect. And if I share my screen, there we go. I hope that should be full screen now. I work on the Eastern New Energy project, which provides free low carbon support to businesses, both private and social enterprises included within that. So in short, E&E aims to accelerate the transition to a low carbon economy by providing bespoke business support, one-to-one business support to yourselves. The project is open for applications between now and up until November this year. As mentioned, it's completely free, and the project involves over 15 partners across the Eastern region, each with a different specialism, and that includes support provided by both private sector and public sector organisations such as the County Council here. Eligible areas include Suffolk, Norfolk, Hertfordshire, Cambridgeshire, Rutlands, and parts of Lincolnshire and Essex. So why should you get involved in Eastern New Energy? We give you the ability to attract new customers, reduce your carbon footprint, reduce costs, develop new products and services, increase your competitiveness, and increased investment, among lots of others as well. So there's lots of added benefits beyond reducing your carbon footprint through the E&E project. So some of our support we provide includes but isn't limited to reducing your energy use or resource demand, improving your business's energy efficiency, developing new low carbon products and services, reducing carbon footprints, carbon life cycle or product life cycle assessments as well. In addition, we're able to support startups, which I believe some programs don't currently do. So we class you as a startup if you're under 12 months old as a business, or if you're newly locating to the east of England. So if you're from another region within the UK and you're looking to set up, for example, an office or moving your whole office space to the area. So a bit more detail about within each of these sections what we're able to do. So as I mentioned, just to mention the startups, we provide bespoke support to help you decarbonise. So that can take basically any kind of form of support you want from our independent experts. So they will work with you on a one-to-one basis. In addition, we provide support to help you develop new low carbon products and services, including entering new markets, process innovation, and life cycle assessments. And we'll also be able to provide fleet audits, so SMEs with more than 5 vehicles. We can give you a short summary report and do some assessments on your current fleet. That can include carbon savings, charging infrastructure advice, and other things along those lines. In addition, we also have some support that if you're involved as part of a wider industrial estate, so say your premises is on a trading estate, or if you're focused on the operation of a trading estate, we can do some bespoke work with you to identify solar PV opportunities, advanced metering, or setting up an energy service company, among others. So as part of our support package, we will refer you to work with our independent partner experts, which is UEA Consulting Limited. They'll carry out 12 hours of direct bespoke support with you. So that will include talking to you about what you want to achieve in terms of your decarbonisation journey, might include a site visit if you're looking at energy efficiency. It might include interviews if you're looking at developing a new low carbon product and service, and their expertise will channel that as well. At the end of that 12 hours of direct bespoke support, you'll finish up with a final report, and we'll provide follow-up support to help you make the best decisions based on our advice that we've given you, and that might include referring you to other organisations to get grants, or other kind of channels to help you get where you want to be. Also through the project, our partners, PECT, are issuing grants that cover capital grants for low carbon technologies. So this includes solar PV, LED lighting replacement, heating control, motor replacement, upgrading equipment, and a whole host of other things as well. So that's grants cover about 20 to 25% of the capital project cost, and the minimum grant is about £1,000. PECT recently spoken to, they will fund projects up to a minimum of about 3,000 as a total project cost, but the maximum grant is unlimited ultimately within that space, which is great news for those that are looking for bigger investment and for capital projects. That will be closing early October this year. So again, that's on a first come first served basis, and you can either contact myself and I can refer you to PECT if this is something you're interested in, or if you contact PECT directly at the email address at the bottom of the screen there. So for our eligibility criteria, you need to be an SME. You need to be either in the private or social sector, have an annual turnover under 43 million, based in one of the areas I mentioned earlier, and your main business activity is in agriculture, steel, coal, shipbuilding, banking, insurance, healthcare, or education, and you need to have under 250 employees. If you're worried about any of these when coming and looking for support, just give me an email and I'm happy to run through these with anybody. In addition to sort of the support I've outlined through E&E, and we're also holding a Path to Zero Carbon Knowledge Exchange programme later on this year in March. This will include 6 online workshops, which will cover carbon literacy, monitoring carbon accounting, forming an action plan, setting up objectives for your business, and looking at where you can make commitments to decarbonisation or on the climate change agenda, looking for change within the organisation to meet those commitments, and looking for possible funding as well. So that session will be over, I believe, a total of 5 days split over 2 weeks, and that includes 6 2-hour sessions. If you'd like some more information about that, please pop an email to me, or go to greensuffolk.org, and there'll be some information on there shortly. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, I believe we're doing questions at the end of all 3 presentations. You can contact me directly. My phone number's on the screen there, or via email, and I'll be happy to answer any further questions you may have, or anything else. Thanks very much.
That's great. Thanks very much, Chris. Yeah, we will do questions at the end, if everyone's okay with that still. So Pete, if you just let me share screen, I'm just going to run through some of the other opportunities we have. And I will rattle through these as quickly as I can. We will take questions at the end, in particular if there are any questions for either Chris or Saffron, or about accessing specific pots of funding or with specific projects in mind, or perhaps more generally about any sort of barriers and areas that we should be looking for funding. And I think hopefully you've got that now. Have you got my presentation there?
Yes, Ned, that's looking good.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to crack through this as quickly as I can, because I've spoken about it a number of times before. Business Energy Efficiency Anglia, we do provide grants to businesses, but in fact that would be true to say that we did provide grants to businesses. So between the time of setting up this webinar and today, we have fully committed our fund. So there is other support available provided by BEE Anglia. I will touch on that a little bit, but really this is supposed to be about accessing funding. So I'm not going to reiterate too much about what we've already done on other areas of it. It is possible, so as shown here, we're slightly overcommitted on our grant pot at the moment. From past experience, not all of the grant offers get claimed in full, so it's very possible that we will be still issuing more grants, and we're happy to talk to people about that, and we'll go onto our waiting list and will be dealt with as and when funds become available. But I'm not really pushing that because, to be honest, it's quite limited. If there is a small project you're looking at, then that might well be worth a conversation. But otherwise, this is very much the end of the project. Bit over £1.5 million awarded to businesses. We've supported a really wide range of projects, and I just want to share this because I think it is worth thinking about the sorts of things that can be supported. So I don't really know how clear this graph is, whether you can see that, but the gist of it is that we've supported everything from solar panels to electric vans to shower heads and radiator valves and skylights and whatever. So there's all sorts of different ways that might be the most appropriate way in your business of being more sustainable. And that will be true for many grants. They will have quite a wide remit on that. It's worth talking to advisors who are out there about what you could look at, and worth perhaps thinking about some of the technologies that might be available to you. We were also, it's worth stressing as well that this has changed. So over the 5 years or so we've been running these grants, we've seen a significant change from, unfortunately I've covered up the key there, so it's not very clear, but what was the largest technology we were funding to begin with, very much LED lighting, a nice established technology people felt comfortable with. Since June 2019, the largest technology by some way has been solar panels. We've also seen a big increase in electric vehicles, particularly vans, which we weren't really seeing before, and battery storage. So more what I would call low carbon specific technologies, whereas previously it was perhaps a bit more about machinery and insulation. So we're seeing a lot more options becoming available for different people. And that market is moving quite fast. And as they're being taken up, they're developing, and we're getting a better awareness of how well they work. So if you looked a few years ago and decided something isn't for you, it is worth perhaps keeping an eye on developments. Yes, so again, just highlighting that we have supported a number of different businesses, a number of different types of project, different sectors. Again, this will be true for many sorts of programs. It can be, the sort of funding environment can be a little bit complicated. It's in the nature of it that everybody who provides money wants a new project set up with a new logo and a new brand and specific aims and everything, which is why we end up with a slightly cluttered marketplace on that. And one of the things that we're trying to tackle today by bringing people together, but a lot of this funding will be applicable for many different circumstances. So it's worth considering from whatever your context is, whatever the project is that you're looking to develop. Hopefully there's something we can support you with. I'm going to touch very briefly on, again, this is the context in which we provide this webinar through the Carbon Charter Network. Set up a long time ago, 10 years ago or more now, with a goal of, in part at least, of tackling that barrier that we kept seeing, sort of short-term projects that were building up awareness and networks and then moving on and closing down and starting again. So this has been in place for over 10 years. I know that we have a number of Carbon Charter holders on the call here. But whether you're charter accredited or not, there is information. So it's a sort of one-stop shop for sustainability information. If you're looking for funding, that website, if you're looking for funding or indeed for support or other resources, we have that all on our carboncharter.org website. Again, these links will go out there, and I'm not going to go through all of this, but it's just to highlight that we also have information about technologies and strategies and yeah, sort of an attempt to put into plain English some of the hot topics around sustainability, which of course isn't just about carbon, it's a broader topic than that as well. We have resources, so carbon footprint calculators, which will be useful for accessing grants, amongst other things, as well as identifying where to act on it. And for members, a login area where you can monitor your progress on that. But that's not really what I'm here to talk about today, because today is about accessing funding, and I want to give a bit of time for questions at the end, but I'm just going to cover a bit of breaking news. So this is run by the New Anglia Growth Hub, which covers Norfolk and Suffolk, and has been launched today. That's coincidental to the arrangement of this webinar. That was where they were waiting for sign-off from government. But Road to Net Zero grants will go from up to £25,000, from £1,000 to £25,000. They will cover up to 75% of eligible costs. So this is a very generous grant relative to some of the others available. It has a wide range of topics that it can cover. There are certain exclusions. It still doesn't support all agricultural businesses. There are exclusions about that, but it'd be worth talking to the Growth Hub on the specifics. And projects have to be completed by the 30th of April. So that's the catch. It's a very generous grant, but this is in the terms of funding that they've accessed from government. It needs to be turned around extremely quickly, and I expect it to be fully subscribed very quickly as well. So I wanted to flag that today for anybody who is interested, has a project that's kind of ready to run. That would be one to look at. Yep, and the details are there. We'll share the slides afterwards. There are other pots available, and again, I've put at the bottom that link to the Carbon Charter website, because I'm conscious it can be confusing that there are lots of pots out there, so we've tried to put them into one place. They're also through the Growth Hub, they would be able to talk to you about what it is that you want to do, and ought to be able to refer you to the most appropriate scheme from that point of view. Now, wanting to leave a bit of time for any questions that anyone might have. I've sort of rattled through that a little bit. If you do want to stay informed and in touch, and you want to know when new pots are available, we have a mailing list, which we do a monthly update on key events and key opportunities, and also very occasionally when major new opportunities arrive, it's a way of finding out about that, so make sure that you're tuned into that. And that is it from me. I don't seem to be able to. Oh, okay, fine. There we go. So yes, rattled through some of the opportunities we have from there, highlighted some of the others that we've got available, and some of the links, and in particular, I would like to flag that the Growth Hub Road to Net Zero grants, both because 75% is really unusually generous, and because they're very time limited. And I guess the final point I wanted to cover, and then I just wanted to see whether before seeing if anyone has any questions, and feel free to put those in the chat, or make yourself known to Peter, who's going as host on here. But just to identify that there is funding available for net zero, but or moving towards net zero, but it is that's not going to be the whole answer. So, and there are other motives for it as well, of course, that it will cut costs, and also through, particularly with an accreditation in place, can help demonstrate sustainable ethos to customers and help win contracts. But in particular, if you are looking at things like sustainable heating solutions, or heat recovery, or sort of heat sharing projects or heat networks, particularly good things to fund, partly because it's quite a difficult thing to do, so it's something that people are keen to fund, and also innovation, as Saffron talked about earlier. Often, if you're looking for new low carbon products or services, there's very often funding available for that. Right, thank you very much. That's enough from me. Well, actually, there is one question there, which are grants available for a horticultural business? which is a really good question. I don't know whether Saffron and Chris may have specific comments from their point of view. EU funding in the past has been tended to exclude agricultural businesses with quite a wide interpretation of that. Growth Hubs grant is central government funded, not EU, so it has different rules, but it still excludes agriculture. My understanding is that it would fund projects in smaller horticultural businesses, but I don't necessarily hold to that. But
there are special rules, aren't there, Ned? There are special rules around agricultural and horticultural businesses. There's a special rule about primary food production in that hasn't been funded through ERDF, which is our main route for European funding that we've had historically, because there's a separate funding route for that. So that doesn't come under the normal grant. So that's always been something that we as a fund and any other projects that we've been involved in haven't been able to fund anything that is about primary food production. However, there's all sorts of other things that can be funded through that route, which is things like new innovations in processes within agricultural or horticultural businesses, or new bits of kit or that kind of thing. It's just the actual food production itself that we're not allowed to invest into. But yes, you're right, Ned. I'm not sure how the new funding streams, which are coming directly from UK government rather than from Brussels ultimately, is going to work, and we're still waiting for some of those rules because those funding streams are not yet fully available to bid for people like us who want to run projects using that money. So we're waiting to see what the new rules will be. Yeah,
absolutely that, and I would encourage you to contact the Growth Hub on the details that are in that slide, which will be shared afterwards, and ask them about it. And I would also, I'd really appreciate, so you've got my email on there as well, I'd really appreciate if you can't access funding for these reasons. That would be really good to know, because I've been involved in a lot of conversations about how moving away from EU funding is an opportunity to review some of the perhaps unnecessary barriers and restrictions that EU funding has put in place. It's tended to believe very strongly in kind of ring-fenced pots, which Saffron has talked about. I worry about the temptation to replicate those pots, because sometimes it's the easiest thing to do. So if you're struggling to access things and it's getting in the way of the goal that we've set of tackling the climate emergency, I would really like that feedback, and I will. It's an opportunity then to hold people to what they said about trying to make some of the funding a bit more accessible. So
I was just going to mention that that question was specifically towards horticultural organisations as well, which has come up. Might just be worth mentioning.
Yes. So for horticulture, it's not something we would have supported under BEE Anglia because of the ERDF restrictions. My understanding is it is something that they would support through the Growth Hub, but you might need to test that. I'm afraid if you're accessing public funding, it's always got to follow the rules. So
worth asking though, isn't it?
My understanding from conversations, but these were before Christmas, and they are still waiting for, as Saffron's mentioned, still waiting to be told many of the things that they have to do for their fund. So, but before Christmas, my understanding was that would be okay. It's possible it's changed, but it's certainly worth asking, and I would be interested to know if you're told it's not. We've also got a question from Linda Grave about working from home. Is there funding directed specifically for working from home? It's another good question.
I just in answer to that, so our support isn't directly looking at working from home funding. However, in terms of kind of like a whole business assessment of your carbon footprint, for example, it might be something that we are able to factor within our 12 hours of support to look at the impacts of working from home in terms of looking at your carbon emissions and the impact of people returning to the office more. would have on that, or vice versa, and kind of like a carbon savings in that way. However, as we're not specifically focused at looking, funding organisations that want to work from home more. It's kind of looking at the whole impact of your business model and how you operate, rather than the specific worked up from home context.
Is it worth saying here, Chris, that it's our team actually are providing some of the support through Eastern New Energy for Chris's programme? Absolutely, working from home is, well, you can see from my background, I am in my spare bedroom. This is where I've been for the last 2 years, most of the time. We do recognise that has an impact, and for organisations that have a number of different employees doing different things, looking at holistically at that, the operations of that business is really important, and how to optimize the decarbonisation potential of that organisation does take into account, where people are, how often they're there, how they're travelling in. So these are all things that are material. They all make a difference.
Absolutely, thanks. So there is support for that on the sort of consultancy side of things. And I think that is something that I should have checked who's on the call. I might get in trouble for volunteering them for everything here, but the Growth Hubs Road to Net Zero projects, there is consultancy support available through that as well. And actually we have consultancy support through BEE Anglia, which you can still access, as well as Eastern New Energy. So there are various routes out there depending on what it is you're looking for. And that would, for example, one thing that you could use that to look at is how you can support decarbonisation when your workforce is working from home. In terms of grant funding, I have heard of it being supported by other projects, but I'm not aware of availability in this region at the moment. So I'm aware that other projects have done it in terms of supporting electric vehicle charging infrastructure at home, and that's been proved eligible. But it's not something that I'm aware has been funded in this region. However, as Saffron said, this is, there's a growing awareness that this is now where a lot of the footprint is. So it might be worth a tester on that as well. It depends quite what you have in mind. I think certainly in terms of the description from the Growth Hubs grant programme, it's very broad. It includes things like behavioural change and strategies like that. So it's something to look at, and it may be one to, word has only gone out today. It might be one just to test them and see what it is they're looking at. I'll have a conversation. If you've got any specific projects in mind as well, send details through to that, but flag them with me as well. I'm happy to have a look and suggest where you might be able to get support for that. Now, I'm conscious, I think we'd said this was said we were going to finish at 2:45, so we're about bang on time now. We were perhaps a little bit late starting. I'm not seeing any other questions at the moment. So I've just seen one in the chat actually. How about courses on net zero eligible to grants? I don't know, is that Chris, is there something, is that covered by you in your support for local services?
So creating courses, it depends what you mean by creating courses in terms of creating a grant to create a course. It's probably something that it's sort of capital funding projects in terms of grants that we provide. So it won't be, for example, creating a course. It would be for LED installation or solar PV as such. It's something that I haven't come across in terms of support for creating a net zero course or courses on net zero. However, it's worth mentioning that we are, as part of the E&E project, looking to trial ultimately an e-learning project, an e-learning course that would be available to SMEs and their workforce. So it would be a small e-learning package that would be donated to, you know, an SME, and they can use it to train their staff members in and around the issues around climate change and moving towards you know, a low carbon economy ultimately within that. However, we are still at the setting up stage of that trial on that basis, so it might be worth you, if that's something that you meant by the courses for net zero, it might be something that if you contact me, and then I can sort of keep you updated on how that's progressing and how the trial's going in that respect. And it might be that you might be interested in being part of that trial as well.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. I guess the other thing that I'd add to that, well, again, stress that as I understand it, the word I've had on the Road to Net Zero project from the Growth Hub is that behaviour change is covered. Does that mean they would fund a course? I don't know, but it would be worth asking them. I think, you know, if they've said behaviour change is something they will cover, then that might be one to look at. In the past, it's been difficult because of the troubles of proving the impact, even if we all know that it's a, you know, a necessary step in the process. The other one to look out for that on that might be that there is a round of government funding coming through around skills development, and that's particularly focused on awareness of a bit of a skills crisis in various sectors, partly I think associated with, well, as everything is associated with Brexit and the pandemic and all of these sorts of situations and impacts from that. And it's been identified that that impacts low carbon sectors. So there is, we think, some funding, skills funding coming through along those lines. It might be one to keep an eye on. Great. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. In particular, thank you very much to Saffron and Chris for keeping to time and answering questions and giving very good précis of the support that they have available. We will share the slides with the contact details on anyone whose email we have from registering for this. So yeah, thank you very much. Please do follow up on the opportunities in there.
Thank you, Ned. It was a real pleasure to talk to everybody. And as Ned said, yeah, very happy to receive emails if anybody wants to get in touch with me. Thanks very much.